Hello everyone, welcome back. If you somehow missed the announcement of the 18th ELF franchise, that is a little bit what we're going to talk about today. Jamal kind of subtly called me out in his YouTube channel, so go and watch that. I'll leave the link in the description to that. He did a reaction to it as well. I'm not going to be talking too much about the team or what it's going to mean or the alignment, because we will have a realignment in the conferences. I'm going to talk about players that I want to see in this team. Not every position. I'm not going to do quarterbacks, and I'm not going to go like crazy 5-minute in-depth show and tape and highlighting a bunch of players. This is basically just going to be me talking about athletes from the Denmark and from the Sweden region. Because if you notice on the announcements, which I'll show you guys in a second, it is the Nordic Storm. It's not the Copenhagen Towers, it's not the Stockholm Mean Machines, it's not a team that already exists. It's a Nordic area team encompassing Denmark and encompassing Sweden. So they get both of those countries as homegrowns, which is incredibly valuable. Now, I think also this opens up quite an interesting discussion about teams doing stuff more like this, of Nordic or Baltic or Mediterranean, rather than set teams if they don't have a lot of homegrown talent. So I'm going to roll the intro now for the announcement if you missed it, and then we're going to get into the players. Couple of things I need to clear up very quickly. I am not affiliated with the Storm, so this is just more of a speculative thing. I don't know who they're going to sign. I don't have any say in who they're going to sign. This team is real, but I'm not involved with it. So everything I say of, oh, like I would sign, or like this guy would be part of my team, it's all hypothetical. Just want to get that out of the way. Secondly, I'm not going to include guys that are still in college. There's actually over 10 Swedish and Danish guys in college. So Thomas Collins, Ludvig Burrell, Andreas Pask, Theodor Undström, all these guys that are in college at the moment. I'm not going to include Oliver Lundberg as well, the running back, and Vale as well, the other running back. Not going to include those because they're still in education and thus probably are not going to be giving up on a D1 program to play for our hypothetical team. So I want to get those points very quickly out of the way. Thirdly, all the beats in the background of the music is being produced by Shiro Beats. I'll leave the link in the channel for the YouTube, also of his Instagram. He makes great stuff, so that's what you're hearing in the background for all of this. He's going to be collaborating with me a lot, and we're going to be making a lot of stuff for this channel in regards to music, which is going to be really, really fun. So go check his stuff out. Fourthly, I am not Swedish nor Danish. I am going to mispronounce these names. I have tried very hard not to, but you know, I don't have experience of the language, so it's not meant in a disrespectful way. If you guys that are in this video watch it, feel free to break it down for me in the comment section. And also some of the tape, I'm not going to be getting the tape for all these guys. If you do want to leave your link to your highlight reels in the description so people can watch you and know who you are before the ELF season, or you want to play on the Swedish team, because people are going to see this that are involved with the organization, I'm sure. Leave your link in the description and maybe they'll see you. You know, I know a lot of people ask me about playing in the ELF, and this is just an opportunity to maybe get seen. You never know. So now that's out of the way, let's actually get into building this roster. Let's begin with Theo Landström.
Connor Miller. 4 wide receivers here, looking up top again for Landström. Back shoulder fade, he's got it, touchdown! Points in this opening quarter, and we're not done yet. Johnson is in motion, the top of the screen, comes across. Miller looking deep for Landström. Landström skies up for that ball, he's got it down to the 10. Johnson in motion, Landström again, back shoulder feed, perfect sequence, back-to-back plays to number 14, and that's good for 6 more. Get their defense back off the field. Miller, happy feet, taking another look. Landström's deep, he's got it. Inside the 20-yard line, down at the 15, making the 14. Miller Looked at one, checks the second one. Landstrom near the boundary. Did he make that grab? They're going to say yes, he did.
Now, Theodore was actually meant to be on Hamburg this season, but unfortunately suffered an injury. He's a sideline guy. You can see that he's big, he's physical, he's able to get the ball out of the air. He's also able to outmuscle defensive backs. We're going to need that on this team. There's a lot of big guys in Sweden and Denmark who can go and get the ball up in the air. 6'4", 210 pounds, big dude, young, athletic, and I think that if he can come back from his injury successfully, he's going to be one of the first players signed. Take everything I just said about Theodore and make him Danish, and you've got Simon Fons. 1,000-yard receiver for Potsdam Royals. GFL, like leading receiver at one point. Danish, same height as Theodore, same weight as Theodore. Another sideline guy. He's a bit of a better blocker than Theodore. That's the difference between those two. And I think those two are going to be primarily the guys on the outside. Two former Helvetic receivers as well. Anton Coleman, who was there this season, and also Anton Jali, who was a 2022 Offensive Rookie of the Year nominee for the Guards when they were previously known as such. Coleman and Jali, both of those guys, also big-bodied, physical, stridey, lengthy receivers who can get the ball out of the air. And they'll probably provide as depth on those outsides for Fons and for Landstrom. One of the more athletic receivers in Sweden, Edvin Almeida Taborda, is a multiple-time scoring leader in Sweden. He's able to kind of be that balanced receiver who can play within the slot and outside. He gives that dynamic explosiveness, I think, to receiver core that isn't as aware with some of the other receivers that we have within this group. Magnus Earth. I'm a massive Magnus fan because of Europe's Elite from years ago, so I followed his career all the way through up to the pro levels. Big, strong, lengthy, good catch radius, physical in contact, right? You've heard it all before when it comes to his receivers. A lot of these receivers are quite similar, but he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit in Potsdam, and I don't think that'll be the case here. If this does happen, I think that he's going to become an early often target just because he is quite young. All these guys are quite young. All of them are like under 25, but he just provides that little spark, I think, and he could be a bit of a dark horse if he's eligible for Rookie of the Year. Oliver Ribe is going to be a tight end. You might recognize him from the Enthroners. He also played for the Raiders Tyrrell. He's played all around Europe. He plays in Dresden as well. Physical blocker. He isn't actually receiving tight end, but his blocking is really what's important. I think with this run game not being as elite as other teams, but the receiver core being so stacked, I think that that's really where he'll find a really good role within this team. Rounding out this group of players, we have Kasper Wetterberg at running back, two-time running back of the year, multiple-time leading rusher in the Swedish league, good scorer, physical running back, shorter, so he's harder to kind of get a grab of. He is going to get low on these line of scrimmage and just kind of get forward for a couple yards if you really need it. I think that's where he's going to find a lot of his value. I mean, he averaged 6.4 yards per carry in the Swedish league this season. The Swedish league's pretty damn good, so I think that he'll be very important going forward, especially while these younger guys are coming through college and developing. Now, I know there'll be some guys I didn't mention that people thought I was going to mention. Trust me, there's a lot. Like, get used to it, because otherwise this video would be about 3 hours long if I talked about everyone I want to talk to. But there are going to be a ton of guys. I mean, Kasper Jorgensen, Anton Brungren is an extremely balanced receiver at Stockholm. He's going to be a serious problem. Johannes Lindis, Julius Bunk, another guy I've been following. He was at the Tigers this season. I've been following him since the UFC Elite days. Kevin Borzewski, the leading receiver in Sweden this season. Like, there's a ton, even at running backs, while you wait for those guys like Oliver Lundberg to come out of college. They're just Emil Knudsen. You've got Jakob Mikkelsen, who at Hamburg, that I believe would be a German now, so I'm not 100% sure on that. Velv, he's got the young Swedish running back. He's going to be in college in a couple of seasons, but fucking hell, he's talented. Like, there are so many guys, and at tight end as well. Like, you've got Victor Windström and Theodor Unström, who are both in West Virginia and Texas A&M respectively. Like, I want to talk about all of these guys, but you have to understand that I've got limited time, and you guys have got limited time. So I didn't want to spend too long on just every single guy, but that is the skill position, guys. Let's move on to the big boys. Okay, so you're going to have to bear with me with this one, because it's basically just going to be me spitting names, because I don't really have the ability to make graphics for all these guys as much as I would like to. I don't have access to all these different league photography things, and honestly, a lot of linemen don't get the love they deserve, but we're going to start in the offensive line just because of the numbers. Right, first of all, foremost, I know people are going to talk about it. Waheem is going to be involved in the organization in some way. I'm not entirely sure how, but he was on stage when they did all the stuff and said that he's going to be at least around, right? Not playing, as far as I'm aware. If he wants to play, then sure. I love Wahim. I think he's probably the best centre in the league. So I'd be fine with that. But he, as of now, is not confirmed to be playing on the team. Steven Nielsen, one of the best offensive tackles, if not the best offensive tackle in Europe. He played in Canada. He played in Canada too. It wasn't like he went over for a couple months and was on a practice squad. He was actively involved with that team. He played with Galaxy this season. Didn't get an All-Star nominations that I think he deserved, honestly, and he's an incredible talent. Also in the ELF, you got Matthias Roel Hullemas, who is another Danish guard, and he played for Prague this season. You got people like Aaron David Bronstein, who played for the 86ers, who was a good inside guy as well. Another Denmark, we've got Nicholas Moller Hansen, he played for the Baltic Hurricanes in the GFL, so you got people in there. The Danes also have two guys in the Ravensburg team that are excellent. One of which being Laurentis Lund Tvilling-Winkler. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but he's another outstanding guy. Super young, super athletic. And then the Swedish guys, again, also Victor Newman of the Cologne Centurions. You've got Morgan Bonney, who played for Modeling Rangers. You've got Rasmus Redling, who played for the Ottawa Sooners, who's a young guy, but he's incredibly talented as a young player. Oscar Lindberg, Stockholm Mean Machines. Oscar Flo Svinquist for the Black Knights. These local guys, we're going to need to build a team with that amount of depth, so taking guys from the Swedish League is going to be very, very important. Oliver Lindstrom, former Galaxy Centre, also Offensive Lineman of the Year when it comes to the Swedish League. You've got Lucas Lavin, probably one of the better people in this team. He played for the Ottawa Red Blacks and is a CFL vet as well. So you've got a couple of Swedish guys that are CFL vets. You've got some Danish CFL vets as well. We've got Peter Ollison for the Helsingborg Jaguars. I like him a lot as well. Oscar Silberg, another young guy at RRG Academy who's going to be coming through. Victor Stoffel at Cal Berkeley currently. I know I didn't mention many college players, but fucking Cal Berkeley offensive lineman, you're going to mention him. Robin Salvin, Teresa Roll Crowns, Marcus Christensen, Noah Medchi, both of those guys are going to be incredibly important to the future development of this team. So overall, Keenan Wilson from the Oaks as well is a really, really good offensive lineman that I've loved for years, as well as Stefan Stefansson, the Icelandic player from Helvetic Mercenaries this season. I think he's going to move inside the guard, use that size and that weight and that ability as an anchor to move into guard, I think. He's Icelandic, but started playing in Denmark, so he would count as a Danish homegrown for this team. So it's just more ELF depth and local Danish depth, because Wilson, I know he's had his injuries. Very, very talented player, and a lot of these guys are more. It just fits into that young core, but with Stefan Stefansson, get a little bit more of that veteran leadership that comes from winning multiple GFL championships. Offensive line is absolutely fucking stacked when you put Sweden and Denmark together. You could just put Denmark or just put Sweden, and you would have a very, very capable offensive line. Serious weapons within that. And you go to the defensive line, it's a little bit lighter. Azan Zetterberg is the main one. You got Emil Forvda as the defensive ends. There are a couple pieces. I think this would be a position where you would have a couple of E's. I think the defensive line, because they have a lot of size and necessarily as much speed, and I think you would probably need that. But big guys, again, this one's very raw, very podcast-ish feeling of me just talking about the guys, but this offensive line, man, is seriously special, and I think I would maybe put a potential E at running back. And if you've got someone like Nico Barrow, who is Finnish, going to be easier to get him into this team of the Dresden Monarchs. Ooh, that would be nasty. You put someone like Glenn, MVP, in this team. We saw how good he was with the great offensive line. Or another player that's kind of like a cold weather back. There's some guys you just know would do real well in cold weather, and I think those two would be, monstrous. You got more physical backs, and Anzu Leka I think would do really well in this team, but we'll see what they do with that position. Overall, this is such a special unit, and I think this has been like the crown jewel of this is why we should have a team, because our offensive line is so fucking good. They can protect our franchise quarterback and just the team in general, and get them onto a really, really positive start in this league. Alright, now we're going to touch on the defensive skill position. Some of these guys, man, you'll be very, very familiar with. Some I think you'll have a vague remembering of because they've been playing in around different leagues. And oh boy, is this a really fucking talented group of players. And I think this is probably the group of players that goes the most under the radar. Talking to a couple of people this week about it, and they're like, oh damn, yeah, I forgot about him. So this one's going to be pretty fucking good, I think. Let's start with the main guy everyone's going to think about when they think of these homegrown teams. It's Jordan Genmark-Heath. He's an instant superstar for this team, right? He's recognizable to the Swedish fans and to the Copenhagen fans. He's recognizable to North American fans as well because of his time in D1 colleges and then also in North American leagues too. He's recognizable to ELF fans because he played for Paris last season. Athletic freak of a player. Can play all across the linebacker core. Played a little bit of running back last season as well, just to flash athleticism. He's like probably the first guy on the team sheet as far as these homegrown players go, right? It makes complete sense. Immediate lock, immediate superstar potential that could just catapult him up to being like one of the faces of the league, in all honesty. Now, Berlin have a number of players we're interested in. We'll start with Emil Forfda, one of the most talented young pass rushers in the league, as well as being pretty damn good in the run game too. 4.5 sacks this season, which is a bit of a decrease from last year, but still undoubtedly one of the best young players. 23 years old, 6'2", 230, fast, off the line, immediate, one of those guys you just sign as a homegrown. Give him a blank check. We need Emil Forfda if we're going to build this team. Another guaranteed player is Ludwig Myron, 23 years old as well, so they have a unbelievably good young core in this team. He's an all-star this season, had a great year, and kind of positions himself as being able to play in that like outside linebacker role for this team. He is on the smaller side for a linebacker, but incredibly athletic as well. Again, he's a superstar for this team. Like, he's a non-negotiable. You are going to sign him from Berlin, him and Forfda. Both of these guys have sky-high potential, and they're already starting to kind of elevate into that all-star conversation. You have those three like must-signs. Oh my days, the possibilities are endless. Speaking of all-stars, Hugo Dyrol, 26 years old, just got his first ELF all-star. Congratulations to him. Had a fucking great season with the Galaxy. 135 total tackles is crazy, by the way. And he's at his potential now, right? He's 26, in his prime. Go after him. Go get him. You got him, Ludwig, Jordan. That trio of linebackers. You have him in the middle, filling those A's and B's, being that tackle machine that he is. Basically the Swedish AJ Wendland. And you got Jordan and Ludwig at outside linebacker. That might be the best homegrown linebacking trio in the league. You got 2 all-stars and a D1 athlete. That's pretty fucking absurd. I don't think many people can really compete with that. Another guy you might recognize, Milos Ilic, played for the Munich Ravens like last season. Spent a lot of time in New Yorker this year. 6'1", 185 pounds, lean, athletic, defensive back, who is, I think, capable of being a really like aggressive, nasty kind of nickel player. That's kind of what I want to see from him in terms of his development. 23 years old as well, so like young, fits into this core. Is Danish, has Serbian heritage as well. He's another player that is like kind of on that younger side that I think could fit into a really nice role. Kind of similar to what we saw with like Pablo Arrea. I know he was in Munich a couple of years back, but that's still only his development, and I think that he's made a lot of strides this season with New Yorker. The last two I want to talk about, another really interesting group of players, because Nielsen is under 25, so is Allison. You might remember both of those. They played a couple games in the ELF. Noah in 2022 at the Istanbul Rams, and Nielsen with the Droners in 2024. Both of these guys, I think, are very capable of starting as a homegrown on this team. Allison, he got, I think 3 picks in 4 games for the Rams when they're around. He's aggressive, he goes after the ball, he's a bit meandering in his footwork, but he can absolutely be a starting player on this team. Nielsen, again, another high aggression, impact turnover player. Like, another guy who, they're actually very similar. I think they're actually incredibly similar players. One just plays a bit more safety, one just plays a bit more corner. But both of these guys are lengthy, aggressive players who can turn over the ball. And that's all we need, man. If we have those two, a couple of Americans, because that's where I would spend both of those American spots, is at the defensive back position. And we'll get to that in a second. But with those two as homegrown players, with Noah being Swedish, Nielsen being Danish, and then you've got Miles Illig, you've got other people coming through the youth system, and oh man, this defensive back core I think is a little bit under the radar. It's not the strongest group within the team, it's not the strongest of linebackers, but it does produce some seriously talented players. And that is our core of players. Ton of all-stars. Ludwig Myron, Hugo Dyrol, Azan Zetterberg, Steven Nielsen. Like, all over the place. And in different positions as well. We've got GFL superstars like Simon Fons and young guys like Julius Bunk coming through. And there's so much in this team. And it's a really, really young team. A lot of the guys I talked about are either before their prime or in their prime. Like, there's very few players from like an older generation, which I think is incredibly interesting. It could be a little bit of an experience. And I think it's hard to ignore that a lot of their players have similar skill sets, right? I mean, this isn't all positives. There are some negatives to this team. A lot of their receivers are very much similar. A lot of their DBs are kind of similar in their aspects. They do have some deficits at defensive line and a little bit of lack of speed and a little bit of a lack of athleticism in some positions. Where would I spend the A's, right? I think Alexander Kronberg is a really good quarterback. He played for Ravensburg as an E, but I think that I would go for an American quarterback, obviously. Receivers, I would, as for, I know a lot of people have asked who I would go for in certain positions. I don't know who's going to be a free agent in this coming season, and they're going to go after some of the guys. They're going to be a new team. They're going to try and make a splash signing. I don't know who they're going to try and get, but we'll see who they're going to try and get. As for the other eight, I'm going to get a slot receiver. I really fucking love someone like Jason Matthew-Sarsh in this team, personally. And he add a little bit of speed and a little bit of dynamicism and intermediate short play ability into that receiver core. Ease, I probably have at running back. Right, I mentioned that. Have a cold weather running back. Someone pretty physical, pretty burly that I can kind of dominate with. You know, there's a big team. You know, you can get physical with them. Maybe you even go in a different direction and get someone a little bit quicker, a little bit more nifty. You know, it's up to them, really, ultimately, who they go for. So I don't really think maybe another E receiver if I need someone in the slot and again add a little bit of sharpness to it. But I think that Edwin could be that guy. He does sometimes walk routes, which I think if he locks in, has a team that can really challenge him, because he's been a player that I really have wanted to see step up into some GFL ELF competition, and hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. As for the defensive positions, I mentioned I probably would go to American defensive backs, probably safety and a corner. I might get someone like Rodion in that spot as well as an E, just to create more turnovers potentially. Maybe someone at rush, like an E at rush, and then maybe an E defensive tackle just to pair with Azan Zetterberg. So that's what I would go for. This obviously was, I think you can kind of tell I had a vision at the start, but if I wanted to get this out within the next like fucking month, I had to kind of pivot from the not overproduced, but lots of highlights of the players. So I do apologize for that. I apologize if you kind of watched that and was like, oh, we're going to see a ton of highlights, and then we didn't show any highlights for the rest of it. So Theo Landstrom gets highlights and no one else did. But because I wanted to get this out, it's fresh off the news. People were talking about it. Of course, people are going to be talking about other expansions they want to see, and that's all very exciting stuff as well. 18 teams in the league. I'm really excited about this team. Some people, as like honestly pretty reasonably, have said like, oh, you know, Nordic team, they get Denmark and Sweden. So I think that's a little bit unfair, because both of those teams are really good. Both of them are under 19 powerhouses. Both of them are national team powerhouses. And some people have some questions. You know, maybe we'll see people like Portugal absorbed into Spain homegrowns. Maybe we'll see like Slovenia, Slovakia into the Czech homegrowns. I think I would like to see that. It's a little bit more regionalized. I mentioned at the start, I think it's going to open discussion for Nordic, Mediterranean, Baltic, rather than set countries sometimes, if they need a little bit of help supplementing that homegrown deficiency. And that is going to round us up. Hope you guys have fun. Hope I taught you some guys and some players that I think you will enjoy, or that you want to go research. And like I said at the start, man, if you're one of these players I've talked about, or I didn't talk about you, and you want to be talked about in regard to this Nordic team, put your highlight reels in the description. Message me on Instagram, message me on Twitter. I am very, 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 very reachable. And that's one day I really have put an emphasis on this channel of connecting with the people that watch my videos and give me their time and appreciate my work, or are just interested in scouting in general. So, and if I didn't talk about players, it's not disrespectful, it's just I've got a lot of players to go through, right? I only had a few days to put this together. A lot of this was just off of previous scout work. So hope you guys enjoyed. As for this week in terms of production, I think I've got my master stuff, obviously I've talked about on this channel before, and I'm going to try and get some of the evaluations up soon. Members will get this today, and then if you don't have membership, it will come out the day after. So today is currently the 27th, Friday, at 12 o'clock, and we'll we'll see what happens, right? It's going to be a good couple of weeks. It's obviously going to be crazy, guys. I might do a bit of a rumors. I don't really want to do a rumors thing, but I might do some like hypothetical moves. I've heard some rumors, including the Nordic team, that are very interesting. So we'll find out. But I'm rambling on. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you and goodbye.